who should Jews vote for? You have the Republican Party led by Donald Trump. You have the Democratic Party now run by Kamala Harris. I'm not sure how that happened. And I think that Jews right now in America are facing a moral dilemma. They don't know exactly how to vote.
How can a Jewish person or a person that loves Israel vote, think of this, vote for these parties? I mean, how can they vote Democrat?
On one hand, they have Donald, who has very favorable policies when it comes to Israel, who seems to be more in line with religious values and beliefs. And then you have the other side of the coin, which is Kamala Harris, which Jews have, by and large in history, voted Democrat. And Jews find themselves in a voting crisis right now. And I wanted to invite my dear friend, Simon Jacobson, head of the Meaningful Life Center, to spread some light and maybe give us a little bit of guidance on who we should be voting for. So, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, welcome to another episode. I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter.
Thank you for having me, Berel. It's always a pleasure and honor to be with you. Very important topic. As you know, this presidential election, perhaps one of the most tumultuous of them all, with all the surprising twists and turns. First, the two oldest candidates ever, Donald Trump and Biden. Then, of course, the disastrous Biden debate. Then the attack, the assassination attempt on Trump. Then Biden dropping out. As you said, Kamala Harris replacing him. And a polarization that is affecting the Jewish, especially Jews, because as you said accurately, that Jews have historically voted Democratic. I'm in New York. New York is always Democratic. It doesn't matter who the candidate is. And on the other hand, we're dealing in very volatile times, especially in Israel.
By the way, Donald Trump keeps on pointing out the Jews and singling them out in front of the entire world. I've seen within the past 10 days, 3 times in front of the entire world, out of the lips of Donald Trump has come, I don't understand how Jews are voting Democrat. And he's literally calling us out in front of the entire world.
Right. So with all that climate going on, I think the first thing, and I speak now to my fellow Jews, since we're talking about who Jews should vote for, it's time for us to get out of herd mentality. Just because we've always voted, many of us have voted Democratic, I mean, what is that? This is some type of automatic thing? We have to think of terms of policies, positions, especially regarding Jews, regarding Israel, regarding what's going on the campuses, regarding anti-Semitic, the rise of anti-Semitism. Stop thinking like a party person. This is not about Republican or Democrat. This is what is good for the Jewish people in general. And let's be honest, what's good for the Jewish people is usually good for the human race. And whatever attacks the Jewish people usually attacks the human race. That's also history. So I think the first thing is, we always like to look at the silver lining. Maybe all of this chaos and upheaval is a wake-up call. Stop thinking like a machine. Start thinking originally, what is the right thing to do? And let's get rid of the names here. Let's talk about the policies. It's not a personal thing. It's about positions. Israel needs now a strong United States, the strongest ever. So ask yourself, who will be the better candidate to help support Israel and its cause? Who will be the better candidate to help support Jewish values? What is a Jewish value? Freedom. Jewish value is bringing morality. Look, the assassination attempt is a wake-up call of the corruption and the moral erosion of what's our children. Look, a 20-year-old weirdo almost killed a presidential candidate, a former president. What are we teaching our children in schools? Are we teaching them about a higher morality, about God, about values? So it's time for Jews to start thinking Jewish. And whether it's in New York or other historical democratic states, we have to be voting for the best candidate possible. Now, some will say both candidates are flawed. What do we do then? You know what? God leads the world. He leads. It says that the hearts of leaders are in the hands of God. But we still have to do our part to try to align ourselves and align this country with what is needed. And that's what we have right now. We have to work with what we have. That's the first thing I would declare.
So I'm going to paint with a broad brush. Okay, I'm going to say something a little controversial, but it's true.
Sure.
My experience and my friends on the religious end of Judaism, that lean more towards Orthodox Judaism, for them, at least most of them, it's a no-brainer that they're voting for Trump. And then when you go to Jews that are less affiliated with their Judaism, although 100% Jewish, they lean more towards the Democratic Party, the left party. Why is that? When Trump is asking that question, not that we have to answer every question that Trump asks, okay? But when Trump asks that question, he's referring to the liberal Jews in America.
Yep.
And it's hard to have this conversation without dividing Jews. And that's also what I don't want to do, and I admittedly have not done it very well, is this conversation is extremely difficult to have without upsetting Jews. And I put it out there the other day that my main focus in 99% of my content is to bring Jews closer to Judaism. And this subject seems to be dividing Jews more than ever. So
it's a very, very good question. Yeah.
Help me, Rabbi.
Yes. It's a cry for help. I got it.
It's a cry for help. I need guidance.
Okay. It's a very fair question, a very good question.
By the way, is that a fair statement? Most
yes, it
Orthodox
is.
Jews lean right and less observant Jews lean to the left?
I would make one small correction. I think most right-wing or most Orthodox Jews lean definitely right. As far as the secular Jews, I don't know if it's the same numbers that they lean to the left, but there's more that lean to the left because there's plenty there as well that are pro-right. But generally speaking, correct. I'll give you my analysis of it, but I wanted to say one thing before I do, and that is another thing that needs to be emphasized, and I've asked many of my own Orthodox friends as well, is it a vote for Trump or is it a vote against the left because they're so radical? Many will say it's not necessarily a vote for Trump, it's more of a vote against them, which is an interesting twist on the whole picture.
I actually find the opposite. I find that it actually is a vote for Trump.
Okay.
When it comes to the right, I find the Democratic Party, their whole campaign is, don't let Trump get in. That's their entire platform.
Okay. Interesting.
Maybe you're in New York. Maybe things are different there.
Listen, and also it could be both are true in certain circles.
Yeah.
Remember, we're dealing with a large electorate here. It's not a small number of people.
Correct.
There are definitely Trump haters, anything but Trump, and they don't really care who the other candidate is. And I think there is an element of people who are just turned off by where the Democratic Party has wandered and pandering to almost a communist and woke and Marxist left-wing extremism. There is a big turn against that. Well, let me respond. I want to say the following. I think it's something that people are not aware of. The very concept of liberalism is actually a Jewish concept. It begins with Abraham in the Torah. Abraham introduced into a selfish pagan world the concept of charity, that life is not just about my own survival and survival of the fittest and dog eats dog, but we are here also to protect the poor, the vulnerable, the young, the orphans, the weak. And that was not popular. So he introduced the concept of sharing and giving. Where I think things have gone and twisted and became distorted is that Jews have always been socially liberal in the sense of having a gemach, which means a free loan society, making sure that all people who don't have money, we have to provide them with scholarships, provide them with food. That's like a mitzvah. So socially very liberal, but politically, Jews have historically been very conservative, meaning values, not wishy-washy, not moral relativism. And I think a lot of Jews who essentially wandered away, I'm not blaming anyone, due to assimilation, I will call it more God was cut out of the picture, retained a liberalism that also spilled over into the political.
Interesting.
And it became political liberals and not just social liberals. And I think that you go to any Orthodox community, you tell me where there's more charity, how they protect themselves, how they go into a hospital, Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick. So I think there's a certain misguided element that many Jews have that we want to be liberal, but for some reason, liberalism without a higher consciousness, what the Founding Fathers called, that what we call in God we trust, what the Founding Fathers write in the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal and are endowed by the Creator with unalienable rights, take out God from the picture, liberalism really loses its moorings. It loses its GPS, and that's where you have the major distortions. So I think the difference between Orthodox and none is essentially how much important is God and the values of Torah and moral values based on Torah absolutes in the picture. That's what I believe is the reason. So they think that Democrats are more liberal because they tax the rich more, they want to give more charity, want to give out more handouts. But we all know the distortions that are involved in that.
So does the Republican Party have those redeeming, let's call them liberal qualities as well?
Look, as we both know, to say that the Republicans have it all right and the Democrats have it all wrong is just as bad as saying the Democrats have it all right and the Republicans have it all wrong. I think both could use improvement. As much as I will make choices of my own who I'm going to vote for, I don't think of myself as a loyal Republican or a loyal Democrat. I look at case by case. What does the current candidate stand for? And what are the Republican Party advocating? Because we also know, let's be honest, in elections, people say all kinds of things, and later they don't do it anyway. You know, there's certain things that we cannot deny that Trump in his first term, meaning as 45th president, moved the embassy, very pro-Israel, the Abraham Accords, many things that were very good for the Jewish people. Will I say everything Trump did and does is completely aligned with Torah? He's not a Torah person. He's a president with his flaws, and he's got his flaws. On the other hand, I think Biden and Kamala, probably similar, are very weak with Israel. On one hand, there's a certain support, but then there's this wishy-washy where they're empowering the enemy with their statements. That immediately is a reason for concern.
Why are they weak? Why is Biden and Kamala and the Democratic Party of today, because usually Israel has been a bipartisan issue, why are they more weak on Israel?
Well, some people blame Obama, to be very honest, who has always had sentiments that seemingly were more sympathetic to the Muslim world, even though Israel still received tremendous support from the United States. So some feel that the politics of the Democratic Party have moved to become what they call even-handed, basically, and are not appreciating Israel, the importance of Israel as an ally. I think there's also a propaganda war going on with the type of convincing that if you want to win an election, you need Muslim votes, and there's a certain type of climate that I think in some ways our enemies are winning a certain political PR war, and that's affecting some of the leaders.
I would also couple it with what you mentioned before. I think that now that, we're having this discussion, the same concept of taking God out of things is what is leading the Biden-Kamala Harris administration to weaken their support for Israel. And a person might say, well, where do we see them taking God out of, things? And just a small example is Nancy Pelosi taking down the famous sign